Coronavirus, a warning, not punishment. Today in the morning, I was listening to a talk by someone. He referred to the present day situation and termed it as azab or punishment. Whatever is happening these days is definitely not azab. Rather, it is intibah or warning. From this perspective, it is rimat and something positive. This is because intibah or warning comes to awaken a human being so that he makes himself alert once again. This warning is to provide an opportunity to a person. Therefore, one must never call such a situation azab. When I sat here, I remembered that whenever we begin any task, we say Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, in the name of God, the Beneficent, the Merciful. I was reminded of a hadith, according to which the Prophet said, any task which begins without saying Bismillah is symbol of negativity from the very start. So saying Bismillah is a big blessing. If we begin a task by saying Bismillah, that carries a positive meaning. It evokes God's mercy upon you. When you say Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, you invoke God's mercy. This is indeed very strange. You always have Ismi Azam, one of God's great names, to call out to God. This is why a person must never utter anything negative about God. You must always speak positively and refer to God with his Ismi Azam. The situation we are facing these days is not azab. God's blessings are so numerous, such as we are breathing in oxygen through air. Air supplies us with sustenance for life. We breathe in this life-sustaining air. Had this air not been supplied to us, we would die in a few minutes. So, I would urge you all that whenever you take God's name, always take it in the positive sense, never take it in a negative sense. I remember that when I first went to America, I landed at the New York airport. When I came out of the airplane, I breathed in very fresh, very good quality air. Then it spontaneously came to my mind that I had come to America, very far away from India. But even here, I was receiving all of God's blessings. There is water, air, food, stability on earth, and innumerable other factors which have made this earth custom made for us. All these are present here as well. God has made the entire universe custom made for man, so that wherever a person goes, he finds a favorable environment. In such a universe, it is not permissible for man to speak negatively. He must always speak positively. Always. I say to God on behalf of all of you, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. That is, I acknowledge God's blessings. You know that the very first verse of the Quran is Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. What does this phrase mean? It is an acknowledgement of God's greatness and his blessings. We have to acknowledge these. I, on behalf of all of you, acknowledge God's blessings, his glory, his infinite attributes. I bow down in prostration to God on behalf of all of you. The Quran says, Wasjud waqtarib, that is, prostrate and draw in nearness to God. I prostrate to God on behalf of all of you, so that we may achieve nearness to God. My everyday routine is to go out of my room on the balcony. There, I am in the midst of trees and fresh breeze. The rays of sunlight spread out over the trees. Among the things that come to my mind is that God has not forgotten me. The way he had remembered me yesterday, even today, keeps me in his remembrance. When the creator of the universe has made the entire universe custom made for me, every moment he remembers me. Why should I be negative? Why should I despair? In Islam, the religion of God, the most unwanted quality is despair or dejection. Remember this, a verse of the Quran which is full of hope is, O my servants, who have committed excess against their own souls, do not despair of God's mercy, for God surely forgives all sins. He is truly the most forgiving, the most merciful. All the scholars of the community and even the companions of the Prophet have said that this is the most hopeful verse in the Quran. Here, forgiveness does not mean that God will forgive you for whatever you do, or that God has a universal computer where automatically your sins get deleted. Rather, this verse means that you should give a mu'minana, faith-based response after having made a mistake. That is, when you make a mistake, immediately remind yourself that you have done something against God. Your mind should immediately remind you, I have committed an act against my Lord. Then immediately, in less than a fraction of a second, God's mercy rushes toward you. Remember that when you make a mistake, and the mistake reminds you of having done something wrong, oh man, what have you done? Then you should become stunned and alert at that very moment and exclaim, Oh my Lord, I have made a mistake. Forgive me. I will never do this again intentionally. Then in less than a fraction of a second, this mistake will be erased from the pages of the universe. In such a world, you have no right to despair and become involved in negative thinking. You do not have to do this. The God, Lord of the worlds, who has provided you with air, water, food, solar system, and numerous other things, is so merciful and compassionate that in His world, we do not have the right to become a victim of dejection or frustration. We do not have to be in despair. So just as I remembered in America that the Lord who had provided me everything in India is also supplying everything in America, this is not true only for America and India. Wherever you be, on the mountain, oceans, wherever you be walking, flying in the air, remember this. This means that every setback, every problem, every difficulty that they are beset by is only a warning and never a punishment or azab. Azab is a full stop. It is God's mercy that in human life there is never a full stop. There are only commas. This is very strange. There are full stops in books written by humans, but in God's book there are only commas and no full stop. Today I will remind you to always be hopeful of God's mercy. Always be hopeful of God's mercy. There have been many incidents in my life wherein suddenly a ray of hope emerged. For example, I was born in UP. For example, I was born in Up. There was a railroad station in Up called Faria, where Maulana Hamiduddin Farahi was born. One day, I got off the train on this station in the evening. It was all dark. I had to go to my village. I went in the direction of my village, but the path was not clear because of darkness. The path had been lost in darkness, but I knew the direction in which to proceed. I began to walk. Then I reached a point where there were fields of corn. I entered the fields, and after some time, I realized that I had lost my way. I didn't know where to go. I was stuck in darkness. Then, at that very moment, there was a light in front of me. I was in the middle of the cornfields. I saw light and began to walk in the direction of the light. When I had reached the source of the light, I realized that a person was standing with a torch in his hand. I told him that I had to go to my village and was lost in the fields. I didn't know where to go. The person began to walk in front of me with his torch and asked me to walk behind him. In this way, we reached near the banks of a river where there was a small bridge. I told him that I had reached the place from where the road to my village began. Then, after some moments, the person went out of sight. It seemed as if he had disappeared. There are many such strange incidents in my life. When I was young, I had smallpox. My entire face had become black. You may not be able to imagine how I looked then. My face had become spotted and blackened. I used to live in the village. Then, one day, an Arab came to our house. We had never met him or known him before. At that time, I used to study at the Madrash of Sarai Mir, perhaps in 1940. I used to speak some Arabic. I talked to the Arab and he said that he would tell me the cure for my smallpox. He took me to the fields in our village. There were some plants in the fields, which were called Bengria in our local language. The Arab plucked out some plants of Bengria and told me to crush it and apply the paste all over my face. He came to my house and even stayed overnight. In his presence, I applied the paste of crushed plant on my face. The Arab asked me to do this for a few days and said it would help me in healing. He then left my house. At that time, a person called Certain worked at our house. I remembered that I should have asked the Arab his name and where he had come. In Arabia, petrodollar had not yet been discovered, and the Arabs were living in poor conditions. I applied the plant paste on my face, and the spots were completely cleared. At that time, my face had become clean. The Arab had come to our house without any information. When I asked Certain to search for the Arab, he went to a number of places but could not find him. The Arab too had almost disappeared. You must be convinced about never despairing of God. You must be certain that God is the giver. God's angels will provide for you and will give you sustenance. The Arab who had come to my house was surely an angel. He had come to my house as a doctor. The name of my village was Baharia. An angel had come to my house as a doctor. Similarly, an angel will come to you with a different face. This angel may get food, etc. So I will say to all of you to consider despair unlawful. You should always have good hopes of God. This has also been mentioned in the Quran and the Hadith, and has also been experienced by many persons such as me. I pray to God to guide us to always be hopeful of God, the Lord of the worlds.